Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Leadership for the Now. My name is Florin Lungu, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. And today, I'm joined by a wonderful friend and a fantastic entrepreneur, Kenneth Larson. Hi, Kenneth.
Hello, Florin. Nice to see you.
Thank you for making the time to be with us today.
My pleasure. I'm honored to be invited, and of course, I've been following you for a long time now. So I'm really impressed about the insights and learnings I'm gaining from these talks. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for also sharing your knowledge and your experience. So for someone that doesn't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Who am I? Yeah, that's the question I've asked myself for the last 40 plus years. But in short, I mean, I would say that I would describe myself as a person who look at the world with a child's curiosity, I would say, and also adding a question mark. There's always a question mark to the picture I'm watching or experiencing. I'm electric engineer in from the school, so to say, from my studies, and but I realized quite early in my life that I'm actually here to serve and move to business development and markets. I'm the middle child of 7.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a big family, and I have 2 kids today, teenagers, 13 and 16. That's a little bit about me, I guess.
Nice. And I love your curious mind. And I love that thing that you look at the world with a curious mind and with the mind of a child, because there are so many things that we don't know about ourselves and about how the world operates. And if we're not staying curious, we might assume that we know things. So that's not a growth mindset. So thank you for sharing that. And I think this is the kind of guest we want on the show. So I know you for a few years. We met maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I kind of follow also your journey with Highland Solutions. So tell us a little bit about, where is the passion coming from for when you started Highland Solutions and you creating value for different businesses and different fields. Tell us a little bit about that.
I guess I mean it started from let's say young age, and the person who really inspired me becoming what I am and doing today was my mom. Actually, she was an entrepreneur. I come from Africa. I grew up both in Sweden and Africa. So growing up as a teenager, I remember she was always saying when I tried and asked if I should do something, she was like, "Kenneth, go ahead. I mean, try. If anyone will make it, it will be you," she said. She always said that. So with the confidence of an idiot, motivated by my mother's love, I always went forward and tried, and failed so many times. I cannot explain how many times I failed, but I gained new knowledge. I learned a lot, and that was a little bit my entrepreneurial mindset that was being fostered in a sense. And I guess I had a great career during my previous year, and ticked off a lot of boxes. But and I remember actually 2013, I was CEO for a big international company, and there was something missing. There was like a growing anxiety in me, and I really couldn't understand what it was until I met a childhood friend who I have this business with today. This building this innovative, entrepreneurial company called Highland Solutions. Basically, I realized that he was an entrepreneur, and he inspired me in so many ways that I really felt the need to explore the path of entrepreneurial, the entrepreneurship. And one thing led to another, and suddenly, he said, "Kenneth, let's do this together." And the journey began. And the thing is, answering your question, is that during this process, I would call it in the exploration and the journey, and our personal leadership development that we exercise on a daily basis, it became clear that, of course, I cannot speak for Jürgen, but I'm sure he will agree with me that he felt the need to actually impact and create a better world. And it sounds perhaps a little bit cliche, but that was actually our motivational factor that we needed to have. And we landed in a vision statement. And may I read it for you?
Sure, of course.
I mean, it basically states, maybe not perfect, but Hisland's purpose is to change business of today, connecting, people, as many people as possible, to create a better world of tomorrow. And we talk about eternal evolution. Our logo is 2E, and that's eternal evolution. And together, we can always be or do better.
Wow, that's so
and
good.
Florin, I must take the opportunity here. May I just show a video? It is
Sure.
1 minute and 50 seconds.
Sure.
Can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's show that. Okay.
Every place has its story, shaping its personality. This island has seen its fair share of rough winds. To chase the horizon just outside our window, we've built, we've crashed, we've been down, only to pull ourselves back up again. Because we've always known that if you do not evolve, if you're unable to change, you're just history. So what makes us, us? Our unwavering ability to change, to build new technologies, to create and realize new ideas. The island is our home, but the globe is our arena. Visionaries, innovators, and engineers, this is who we are. This is what Hisland Island shaped us to be.
Wow. Where is the career side? Because I want to join your team right now. I mean, come on.
Thank you.
This, I don't know what will inspire you actually if you're not inspired by this.
I mean, really, that's the essence of who we want to be and become. So the video is really inspiring us as a team and owners, etc., etc. So we truly believe that this is our path and we are walking it and actually really strategically setting up the how in developing and moving towards the part of actually contributing to a better world.
So you share that the vision that you're working on is to transform the business of today, right? And create opportunities for tomorrow and connect people. So tell us, because you probably work with some industries that we don't have access to, and you have some clients and some projects that you work on, and you probably see some things that we don't see. So what, in your opinion, what would be some of the challenges of leading in today's world and future of entrepreneurship?
This is a very thank you for that. That is a really interesting question, and I mean I don't have the real answer. I can only work or talk from my point of view or our point of view, and I mean we truly believe that creating real engagement is something that will be a key. And I mean, looking at the new generation, and actually part of the old generation is awakening, in a sense, from the old way, that requires a different type of leadership. And we truly believe that real leadership that cares is the new, the new way of being a successful company. And for us, it's all about self-leadership. That's where it starts. If I can lead myself, Florin, I will share this with anyone who wants to learn and grow with me, And the opportunity that we see is how do you create an environment as a company that supports this fact, this it's a way of acting and being, And I guess the answer is leading by example. There is no other way.
Yeah,
At least that's my understanding.
absolutely. So when you talk about real engagement, can you give us a little bit more context to that?
I mean, what is leadership? Leadership is actually someone who cares for you as an individual. And if I feel that my, let's say partner, which I feel, and co-workers, we have a same goal, and it feels like we actually care about each other and our common success, and actually even my success. It seems like they actually care about me succeeding. Just by being in that type of environment creates an engagement. Does it make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I always talk about two things. If you do these two, the third will be the result of the two. So if you see and acknowledge me, that's one. And if you see me, that's one. And if you acknowledge me, that's two. I will be engaged. That's the result of the two.
Yeah.
Being seen and acknowledged creates engagement. Wow. And that's something which I've experienced, working in different sectors, that the company who does this for real are always successful within their segments. Always. It's fascinating to see.
And that's so simple. I mean, it's not so complicated. It's not rocket science, right? I mean, what I love about that is that it's so simple. Being seen and being acknowledged, and showing that you care about people, that's the first step, at least for them to also have that mutual feeling that they also care about you and the company and the success of the company.
I mean, spot on. Exactly. That's how I experience and have reflected on my personal success, my personal leadership, and when I've been leading teams, etc. When I've been doing these things, these two things, it's been very successful in all areas I've been working in.
Right on. Thank you for sharing that. So for example, now, from your experience and what you have seen, like organizations and companies and leaders that do this well, what kind of opportunity do they have that other leaders that don't do this and don't pay attention to these things don't have? So what would be some of the opportunities that open up to leaders that take this seriously?
I mean, think about it. Another great question. I mean, engaged people delivers great results.
Sure.
I mean, that is the mathematics behind, engaged people. That is the outcome. Having engaged people. Imagine having a big international company. I've read different books, and read different studies where they have studied great leaders inspiring companies. And when they've done that, there's been an exponential growth. However, it has collapsed in many cases when that leader leaves and move on. So the challenge has been, so at the same time, that's the opportunity. Creating an environment where you foster great leaders who care about their, team and people in the company. And of course, the customers. I always say it starts with the customers. It's an outside-in perspective. And then you create an environment that solves the customer need, Can you imagine having this type of engagement, being a company of 10,000 people who feel engaged in what they are doing? I mean, or just a small team of 5, 3, 10, 50, having a people engaged, the answer is probably rhetorical. It will create success.
Yeah, you don't have any roadblocks that you cannot overcome with that. So And I love what you said. Like, so on one side, I really resonate with what you just said, that people follow people. So when that leader, leaves the company or moves on, then also they kind of take with them their leadership, right? Maybe if they develop some other leaders in the team, that will pass on for a while. But at the end of the day, people follow people, right? So I completely agree with
Yeah, I mean,
what you
I'm a
said.
little bit. I'm actually challenging that, and
Okay?
I'm so happy that both me and Jürgen, my partner, co-founder of Highland, we are building a process approach. Basically, we are building in because Highland it's its own entity. It needs to be that strong by itself and not dependent on me and Jürgen. So we want to develop processes that fosters this type of a behavior. There should be KPIs supporting, behavior that creates vulnerable leaders who dare to take and do mistakes. Being innovative and always challenging the process, and without feeling, how to say, insecure in their leadership. Leadership is about being vulnerable. I truly believe so, and that's what we are trying to do now. We're really building in a strong, independent way of acting, trying, and constantly moving our, let's call it process, because it's just a point that is a new point to challenge in order to continue moving forward.
Absolutely. And it's challenging what you're saying there, and it's kind of challenging my beliefs about leadership, and I love that we have different views, and we share those here, because that's exactly the point. You don't have to agree with me, I don't have to agree with you. And I'm curious, because okay, on one side I understand that we don't want to be dependent on one person or be vulnerable on one person. And also, when I was a leader, I was leading teams in automotive organizations. My goal was to become dispensable, so to
Yeah.
empower other people to have systems and processes so they don't depend on me. um, but at the end of the day, well, we do business with people, and people follow people. So while I understand that you want to have processes and systems in place to be able to duplicate the culture you want to create, at the end of the day, for me, Highland is actually Kenneth.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, yes. On one hand, I totally agree. But imagine, Florin, having 10 Kenneths coming, from this company. No, don't get me wrong. I mean, we are building, of course, and fostering a certain idea, and let's call it a philosophy in a sense, a business philosophy and leadership philosophy, that shouldn't be dependent on me, so to say. I mean, or you, Florin.
Yeah.
It should be. I mean, I would love to speak in the future with a new Florin who has been fostered in leadership as you are fostering me, and it should feel like he's a typical Florinian. How should I say it?
Yeah, Florinian maybe, or
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's about creating a culture that starts living its own life and acting for the best of its vision and as close to its vision as it can. But it should be moving by itself in that direction and constantly being challenged to enable and to ensure that it is moving in that direction.
right on.
It's hard to explain, but I
No,
truly
it's
believe,
it's
and I've seen brands who I can see that they are fostered in a very actually great leadership, which is more or less independent of who I meet. I can feel that they have the same idea of what they want to deliver to me as a customer.
yeah, and that's company culture, right?
Exactly.
That's company
Exactly.
culture, because and you're right in that perspective. When you think about a company, any company, right? If you think become best version, right? The name of my company. Well, when you think about Becomeverse version, you think about someone that you have interacted with, right?
Yeah.
At Becomeverse version. When I think about
Exactly.
Hisland solution, I think about you, I think about Jürgen, I think about other people that I interacted with. And when you see that consistent behavior and that consistent, way of acting and doing and leading, that tells me that there is a culture there, right? And then we're gonna, associate everyone working at Hisland with that kind of culture, right?
Exactly.
And that's what you're trying to build right now. That's what you're working on building, right?
I mean, spot on. That's exactly what we are doing. I mean, we are a young company. We're only 7 years old on the market, passing through the COVID pandemic, etc. I mean, it's been challenging,
Sure.
but we have survived and actually being strengthened by the experience. So we truly believe that, the video I showed, we did it before the pandemic. And we experienced exactly what we were talking about in the video.
Yeah.
So we are what we are now, communicating.
Absolutely. And I would love to hear more about, how this project, not project, but how that, the work progresses, and maybe you come back on another interview in a few months, maybe next year or in the autumn. So we talk about that more, like how to foster that kind of culture, how to build a company culture, brand identity, leadership culture in a company like yours. I would love to hear more about that in the future.
I will be back anytime, that, Florin. I love these type of topics that you are discussing. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. So let's go back to maybe kind of the topic of today's interview. So if we look at from your perspective, from your window, from where you see now, and the kind of fields you work with, what are some trends that you see right now when it comes to the future of work, to the future of business, to the future of to our future, right? Because now we talk about sustainability. We know that with the crisis that comes with the price of electricity and everything else, there are some trends that are happening. So what do you see? What are some trends that you see from your perspective?
I mean, actually, one of the most, I could be wrong, but I've thought about that topic in other discussions here. Because, of course, digitalization, there's a lot of going on, as you say, energy challenges. There's a transition going on, and electrification, etc., etc. So all of those technology advancements, they are happening. But how do you attract key people to your company? That is actually one of the most challenging opportunities and trends, because we are experiencing and sometimes very fortunate to have people who say, I believe in what you believe, guys. I actually received an offer from this company, but I will join you because, and then they say certain things that is extremely inspiring for me, and of course Jürgen as owner of a company, because then we are actually doing something right. So I truly believe that leadership, true, authentic leadership, is something that is going to be a unique selling point, in a sense, attracting the right people who delivers, the customer expectations, in a sense, but also the technology that is required to be successful nowadays. So again, we are working and exercising, and actually leading with example is what I believe is one of the biggest and most important trends that we are seeing and experiencing, and following certain companies who are really, really good at this.
So what you're saying is almost like we're gonna solve the technological challenges, and with technological advancement, and maybe also the mobility questions, on all these other questions, but we really need to focus on, and the trend is to focus on having the right kind of people on our team. And that's kind of the trend and the challenge that you see businesses face today, being able to attract the right kind of people, and also retain them when they have when they are on board.
Yeah, I mean, retaining, developing, but also, of course, making money. I mean, you have to survive as a company.
Sure.
So the business orientation needs to be high, and with that requires an innovative approach, because a lot of things have already been developed. But how can you actually do things a little bit smarter? So you don't only need the engineers and great key people. You also need a business mindset that can inspire and break new borders and create disruptive technology by using already existing and so forth. So we are doing a lot of this, and that requires a certain type of leadership, because breaking, let's call it, new ways requires to daring as a leader to do mistakes.
Absolutely.
And this is something we are experiencing, that many companies have really challenging way of trying to push that barrier down. So that's a trend we believe is going to be groundbreaking for the companies who dare to create that type of culture, where we dare to do mistakes within the line of economy, financial strength, etc., etc. There's a lot of things to take in consideration, but we need to be able to dare to challenge.
Absolutely. I love that. So since you mentioned this, what would be then kind of your top three things that leaders should do now? You mentioned now being, business, have that kind of business mindset to challenge boundaries and to challenge the way things were done up until now. So what would be some of other things that you would see leaders have to do in order to succeed and at least survive in the future of work?
Wow, that's a good question. I've mentioned, success factors as a leader, to see and acknowledge. I guess that would be one. The second one is, I truly believe that leadership requires it requires to be brave, and being brave is to be vulnerable as a leader. A leader don't have all answers, and we should dare to say that, because that creates an engagement of a different kind, because it creates a sense of, this he's quite humble. I mean, he's like me. Sometimes a leader can create a barrier because he or she always have the answers.
Yeah.
And that's not always the best way of being and, developing your leadership, because we don't.
No.
So that's number two.
Mm-hmm.
And number three, this is a little bit more existential or deep, maybe for some people. So I apologize in advance. But basically, healing yourself, and by doing so, you heal the world. And by healing the world, you heal yourself. That's number three.
It's so interesting you mentioned that, because my wife is a psychiatrist, and we talk a lot about her work experience. Now I coach people, and I've been coached myself, and I've been through experiences, and I didn't know actually what trauma is. Like, someone that has been traumatized in the past, I didn't know what that is. But I have learned that when my parents went shopping when I was 5 years old, and I didn't know that my mom just went to the grocery store, and I was alone at home, and I was climbing on the window, and just yelling for her, and the neighbor underneath us said, stay there, she'll be back, because I felt that I was left alone. That left a mark on me. And I needed to move past that, kind of heal that. So when you mentioned that, I think it's probably a topic that we don't talk a lot about, but it's so important, because we all have little things that we don't pay attention to, we don't give them enough attention, but they are actually impacting the way we live today. And unless we are comfortable with who we are, we're not going to be able to succeed in today's world or in tomorrow's world. So
that is the self-leadership. Totally agree. Thank you for sharing that story. I totally agree with you, and that's so important. That's why I mentioned it as number 3, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, what are you looking forward to this autumn? Like, what's going on in Highland and Kenneth, plan calendar?
I mean, we are working a lot of with amazing technology. Have great people. We are transferring from from people from the automotive into new sectors and areas like real estate. We're working with really cool solutions like vehicle to grid projects that enables totally new and really interesting value streams for our customers. We're working with virtual power stations, involving technology of artificial intelligence development, predictive analytics, and behavior modeling. All of these type of really cool stuff that will enable totally new opportunities for our customers. These are examples of what we are going to do in H2.
Wow, that's exciting, and I cannot wait to hear more about that. And maybe we schedule another episode in maybe in the end of the year, so to hear how that is going.
Thank you.
And thank you for making the time, because we're we're at the top of the time. I know we kind of like to communicate, we like to speak, and we can go for another hour if people allow us. But I want to respect everyone's time, and okay, so let's try to round this up with kind of 2 questions. So usually what I ask all my guests is 2 more personal questions. One is, what was the best leadership advice you ever got, and how did that help you? And secondly, what does leadership for the now means to you? But let's go to the first one.
Yeah, Simon Sinek, he's a very inspiring entrepreneur. He talks about leadership, and it's fascinating to follow him. So if you aren't following, do that. Leadership is about identifying people who believes in what you believe. And 1 + 1 is 5. So find the people who believes in what you believe. Number 1. That's the answer on that question. And by doing so, we have been receiving and experiencing actually very great success, because it has enabled a lot of opportunities for us.
Wow. So find people that believe in what you believe.
Yeah.
That's so good. Thank you for sharing that. So how would you summarize then leadership today? Like, what, if it's a sentence, a word, something short, how would you put it?
Very short. Thank you. Short, I would say authentic leadership is the next factor for success.
Authentic leadership. And I guess that, goes back to what you said, being brave, being vulnerable, being able to say, well, I don't have all the answers, and I will rely on you. And yeah, that's so important. That's so good. Well, thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. Thank you for, again, having brilliant questions. A really interesting one, challenging, and I really appreciate the way you think, Florin.
Yeah, thank you. And I look forward to actually continue the conversation on that episode, because I think we don't spend enough time into talking about, healing and forgiving and being able to feel comfortable in our skin. And we don't spend enough time in talking about building culture. So those 2 topics will probably be, filling another episode in the future.
I would love to support. I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you,
All
Florin.
right. Take care. Speak soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.